I get Ner Shabbos, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Corona Contemplations for Parshiot Vayetze Vayishlach. Again, we are doubling up this week as I was a little under the weather last week. You could still hear I have a cold. I was checked, Baruch Hashem. It was not Corona. I tested negative, thank God. That's that's comforting, but I wasn't in any shape last week to do this, so we're going to double up this week, and it works very nicely because Vayetze Vayishlach, the story of Yaakov Avinu. When we left our hero, he was leaving Beersheba at the word of his parents Rivka and Yitzchak, heading to Haran to go find a wife. And Vayifka Bamakom, he finds himself at Har HaMoriah, the Makom HaMikdash. He lays down and he has the famous dream. The Malachim going up and down. The Rashi says there's certain Malachim that were escorting him through Eretz Yisrael because he was leaving Eretz Yisrael to go to whether it's Iraq or Turkey. But that the different malachim came down. We know the story. But I saw something very beautiful. Actually, I thought of something very beautiful after reading a certain sefer. Rav Doron Kornbluth wrote a sefer called Cremation or Burial, A Jewish View. If you have not seen the sefer, I recommend that you get it. We were at a friend's house. They were sitting Shiva for father who was not from, and he wanted to be cremated. That was that was like the Minagav Isenu. They weren't a Frum family. And my friend, Phil, he left the Sefer visible so that they would read it. They read it and decided not to do it. What does this have to do with Yaakov's dream? Okay, I look back last year, I did talk about this, but it bears repeating. The ladder. What was the ladder in Yaakov's dream? And remember all the allegories, the biblical accounts, some are live, some are Memorex, some are real life, some are allegory. Clearly this was a dream. It even says in the Torah it was a dream. The dream was of a DNA helix. Now, I'm not saying for sure that's what it was, but this is the interpretation that I have come up with, and I actually I've seen some other Mefarshim that speak about this. There's a famous whether it's a medrash or a minhag that says that when a person dies and they're buried. When they die and they're buried, there is a bone, I guess it's C1, that in the back of the head, it's called the luz bone, that doesn't disintegrate. And they say that from that bone, a person is brought back to life, la'asad lavo, tchiyat hamesim. Anybody who's a doctor, a criminologist, my daughter Goldie will jump in here shortly. She's going to come back upstairs. She's studying criminology. Forensics. They can all tell you there's no such bone. You could dig somebody up after the skeleton has disintegrated in the ground. You're not going to find the luz bone. Okay. What's going on here? There is only one matter in the human body that does not disintegrate. You know what that is? It's DNA. You could take dirt where a body lie, take that dirt and you can extract the DNA forever. When it says that Yaakov, it says, Vayikra lamakom shema makom hahu Beit El. Yaakov called it Beit El. Now again, there's a question whether this was actually Har HaMoriah, Beit El, the house of God, or whether it's Beit El that we know now in Yehuda, where there's a yeshiva, in Yosh, right? but it says V'ulam Luz Shem Ha'ir L'Rishona. It used to be called Luz. And it says that Yaakov lay down at this place, and he had this dream, and we know the story of the rocks. He put rocks, and it was one rock underneath his head. And in the morning he wakes up and he says, Ein zeh ki im beit Elohim v'zeh shar hashamayim. This is the house of God, which is why we believe it really was Har HaMoriah where he slept. Beit Elohim v'zeh shar hashamayim. This is the gate of heaven. How does one come back to life after they die? How does one... Yaakov had a dream, and he woke from a dream. The Medrash tells us that a dream is 1/60th of death. It's as if he came back to life, just as the stones underneath his head came together. It's as if he was dead and he came back to life. And how is that? That is only through DNA. V'ulam luz Shem Ha'ir L'Rishona. Why is the Torah telling us it was called Luz? Why do I care that it was called Luz? The Torah only tells us what we need to know. V'ulam Luz Shem Ha'ir L'Rishona. And somehow they called that bone, that magical bone that doesn't really exist, the Luz bone. Because it was from Luz. What did Yaakov dream about in Luz? DNA. The molecules going up and down the DNA ladder. That's the Malachim Olim V'Yardimbo. It's the Spirit of God. It is the very building blocks of life that Yaakov dreamed about. We are all part physical and part spiritual. All of us, all of mankind, all of humankind, excuse me. Can't really say mankind anymore. But we are all made of this physical matter, and we are all made of the spiritual matter. Those are the malachim that are going up and down, the physical and the spiritual. Again, this is an interpretation. But if we think of the DNA helix and that stairway to heaven, I had to, right? That is the Luz bone. That is the DNA. That is the helix that Yaakov dreamed about. And then he heads off to Haran. And what does he find there? Well, a well. Naturally, he found a well. Now, we've been dealing with wells for the last few weeks. We had the wells with Avram, and we had the wells with Yitzchak, and we had the wells with Eliezer and Rivka, and the Beirot Yitzchak. And now, again, the well. And who does Yaakov meet at the well? None other than his bashert, Rachel, who led him to his other 3 basherts. It's good to be the king. Right? So, now I'm Yaakov, as I said, and my wife, not coincidentally, is Rachel, Ruchi. We met at a well also, a watering hole. It was called Leilos in Yerushalayim. It was a bar. Where did you meet how did you meet your wife? Was it a shidduch? Yes, we met in a bar. It was a well. We met at a well. It was a watering hole. So, the well is the source of life. As we said, water. We can't live without water, and we know that the well is also the water is allegorically Torah. Of course, Yaakov meets Rachel, and he and Rachel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah, they create the Shiftei Ka, the forerunners, the forebears of all of Am Yisrael, of course, at the well, the source of life, the source of Torah. And then what happens? So we know that Yaakov works 14 years, 7 for Rachel, and then he was given Leah, and then the other 7 for, and then he works another 7 years and he gets paid in cattle and sheep and all this thing. What happens? Yaakov, we know the whole story again with the dream, that he did this whole thing with the sticks, and somehow all the sheep whether they were spotted or speckled, they all wound up by Yaakov. And what happens? Lavan's sons say, everything that this Jew has came from us. Once again, these Jews are sucking us dry. Just like the Plishtim did last week with Yitzchak, or rather back in Toldot. So now, the same thing is happening with Yaakov. And again, why? We'll see again why he had to use this, the whole thing with the sticks, and how he was able to make the sheep have certain colored, Well, again, why couldn't Hashem just do it? Why, again, did he have to use the subterfuge? And like we said last week, these are skills that we need to have in dealing with the world. It's, I said, the people of the book, we have to use our Yiddish cup. But we saw what happened. Again, another blood libel. The Jews have to be sent out. What happens? Yaakov meets with Rachel and Leah. They decide we're heading out of town. Lavan chases them. Vayugad Lavan bayom hashlishi ki barach Yaakov. Does this sound familiar? Vayugad lamelech Mitzrayim ki barach ha'am. Masa avo siman labanim. Yaakov took off with his family. Lavan was told on the third day by whom, right, that Yaakov had run. He chases them for 7 days, just like Paro chased the Jews for 7 days, and they were at Nachal Yabok instead of the Red Sea. But again, it's the same story, right? They're running after the Jews, and what happens? Lavan says, God came to me in a dream and told me not to harm you, so let's make peace. Again, another Abraham Accord. He set out to kill us, and he winds up making a peace deal. Yegarsa Hadusa, Galeid. They do a mitzvah not to cross or to harm one another. Goldie, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Hi, that was Goldie. She said hi. Goldie closed the... hello, we have a furry visitor too. And that's, of course, what happened. And they decide to make peace with us. And Yaakov leaves with great wealth. A famous story, just like it says that the Jews, Vayinatzlu at Mitzrayim, they looted Egypt. They took all the wealth. So too, we took the wealth from Lavan, and Yitzchak took the wealth from the Plishtim. It's not that it was stolen, chas v'shalom. God forbid. They earned it honestly. But they left with great wealth, and of course the enemy was very jealous, as they always are. And it's why we're told the importance of tzniut. Now, tzniut isn't just skirt length. If anything, skirt length is probably the least important part of tzniut. It's how we hold ourselves, not to be in your face, and not to be chutzpahdik. Do with that what you will. Parshas Vayishlach, this week's parsha. So now, we leave our hero once again at Nachal Yabok. He had just made the deal with Lavan. Again, spends the night. He went back over. He forgot a few small jars or whatever it was. And again, this is the part where it could have been a dream. It could have been real. We're not really sure. Probably there was some sort of, a combination dream, vision thing. But it says that Yaakov fought with the Malach. What does it mean he fought with the Malach? Who's the Malach? Who's he fighting with? Can a man fight with an angel? This isn't Lucifer. I mean, this actually happened, right? So, Rashi tells us it was the Malach Saro Shel Esav. It was the Samael, Satan, Lucifer again. Oh, maybe it was really Lucifer. When I said Lucifer, I was... Anyway. he was fighting with the Yetzer Hara. Hu ha-Yetzer Hara, hu ha-Malach ha-Maves, hu ha-Satan. And this is a very, very esoteric episode. Very strange what's happening over here. They fight, and the angel couldn't overcome Yaakov, so he says to him, you have to send me away, because I have to go sing Shira, the Malachim in the morning, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. No, not until you bless me, says Yaakov. He says, what's your name? What do you mean, what's my name? You were just fighting with me all night. You were sent here to fight with me. You don't know what my name is? What's your name? Yaakov. He says, nope. No longer will you be called Yaakov, you will be called Israel. Yisrael. Why? Ki sarita im Elokim ve'im Adam vatuchal. That you were able to fight with man and with God. What do you mean you fought? He didn't fight with God. So, I heard something very beautiful. Yaakov was fighting with Samael, the Malach of Esav. He was getting ready to go fight with Esav. How was he getting ready to fight with Esav? He made battle plans. He had an avenue of retreat strategy, right? He broke his company into camps. And then he prayed. Katonti mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emet. Right? Yaakov did what he needed to do. He did his hishtadlus. He didn't only daven. He didn't whip out a Tehillim. Maybe he did. He davened. He did his prayer. But he prepared for battle. And he prepared for strategy if he had to, if it all went sideways. So then he lays down to sleep. And whether it was a dream or whether it was real, doesn't really matter. He has this battle with the Malach of Esav. And Esav says to him, you did what you needed to do. And you bested me. You fought the Yetzer Hara and you won. So now, your brother won't harm you. Right? But thus began the greatest battle in the history of mankind. As a matter of humankind, it is the ongoing battle throughout all time. The battle between good and evil. And it started, you could have even said it goes back to Cain and Abel, another Lucifer reference. But this is, once again, at this point, Yaakov becomes Yisrael. And I know I'm jumping all over the place because I'm trying to keep this clear. But Yaakov at this point is no longer Yaakov from Yaakveni, the deceiver. That Esav complained, Halo Karasi, isn't his name Yaakov Vayakveni, he deceived me. Yaakov was an expert at this. Just like with the, just like with the brachot and with the lentil soup and all these different things that he had to do in order to survive. So now Hashem is telling him, you won, Yaakov. You don't have to do this anymore. You are now Yisrael. You are the Sar of God. You are God's minister to the world. It took from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov until the Shiftei Kaf for this to occur. And now Yaakov is God's minister to the world. He is Israel. And what does he respond to the Malach? What's your name? He says, what's your name? Well, what's your name? He goes, Lama zeh tishal shmi. Why are you asking my name? He knew what his name was. Just like he knew Yaakov's name, but he didn't know them. He knew it was Samael. Right? But he's saying, what's your name? So what does Samael answer? Lama zeh. That's my name. Lama zeh. When we say, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? What does God want from me? That's Samael's name. That's the name of evil. Why? Hashem has a plan. Hashem has a plan. We don't say lamazeh. We say yiyeh tov. Whatever it is, kol man da'avad rachmana l'tava avid. That's who Yaakov is. That's who Yisrael is. Yisrael is the Sar of God. We don't say lamazeh. We say Baruch Hashem. And this is the never-ending battle. Throughout time. How does Yaakov emerge from this? With a wounded hip. Bursitis. Oy, it hurts. I had 2 back surgeries. I feel his pain. They wounded us. Samael, Esav, you wounded us. Hurt us bad. That's why we don't eat the Gid Anasha, by the way. Why don't we eat the Gid Anasha? I mean, in certain places they don't eat the whole hindquarter. Here in Israel, Baruch Hashem, we eat the whole cow. They do Akira, they take out the Gid Anasha with the margins. Okay? Why don't we eat it? Because we don't even want to go near temptation. We don't even want to go near evil, Samael, where they hit us. But we came out okay. This was the first battle. There was another battle 70 plus years ago. We were hit bad in the Gid Anasha, but Baruch Hashem, we came out Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, Medinas Yisrael. From a battle with Esav, and it was a bad battle. We did not come out unscathed. We had a pretty bad hip wound. But we came out Yisrael. Just like Yaakov came out Yisrael with his battle with Esav, we came out Yisrael with our battle with Esav, and all our battles with Esav throughout all of Jewish history, all of history. Yeah. Once again, finally, Yaakov meets up with Esav. Instead of fighting, he brings him gifts. Again, part of the strategy. All part of the strategy, the davening, the preparations for war. He did what he needed to do. Instead of killing him, Esav gives him a big hug. My brother. Whoa. He's coming with 400 men, and he wasn't coming with 400 accountants. He wasn't coming with 400 lawyers. He was coming with tanks and RPGs, and he was ready to let Yaakov finally have it, but good. What happens? No, my brother. They hug and they kiss. What's happens? Because the love of an Esav is more dangerous. That's what the angel was telling him. You'll fight with me, but Esav, now he's going to try to be your best friend. So what do? They walk together. Esav says, come with me, my brother. We'll go to Har Seir and we'll live together in peace. And Yaakov's like, Ace, dude. Maybe he was the original Ace. Ace. You know, man, listen, I'd love to hang, but I got the sheep. I got the kids. We'll push the sheep. They'll all die. You got your 400, warriors over here. You go. I'll catch up with you. Listen, I'll take some of my warriors. They'll be here to protect you. Lama emtzachein beinei Adonai. No, you go. I'm going to come to you in Har Seir. I'm going to come stay with you. Did he ever go to Har Seir? Again, Yaakov. Even though he just had the battle with the Asa with him, and he said, no, your name is Yisrael. Whoa, wait a second. Finally, Esav goes on his way. Yaakov goes on his way to Sukkot, and then they go to Shechem. That's coming up shortly. Then he has another vision. And this time God comes to him and says, Lo yikare lecha Yaakov ela Yisrael. Now you got rid of Esav. Now you're really Yisrael. That's what you needed to do. You had to know, yeah, we can be friends. We can be neighbors. But you go to Har Seir, I'll go to Eretz Yisrael. We can have maso matan, but none of the schmoozy stuff. It never ends well. Then he got the bracha from Hashem, and he was given the bracha that this land will all be yours, like the stars of the heaven and the salt of the sea and the sand by the beach. Only once he fought with the Malach, he fought with the Yetzer, and he told Esav, Ace, we're good, but you go your way, I'll go mine. You can't mix Kedusha and Tumah. You can't mix oil and water. It just doesn't go together. So, then we know the story by Shechem. He buys Shechem. Again, one of the places in the Torah that it says that we paid good money. Right? He bought it from Chamor. And then they had, the whole incident with Dinah. The brothers didn't like what happened. He violated her, and they did a big bedikas chametz, wiped them all out. And even though Yaakov was upset about it, we know it says Vayiyu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar. Interesting that the brothers also used a little subterfuge in there with the bris milah. He told them to have the bris milah, and then they wiped him out. You see, it's in our DNA. Think of the latter. It's in our DNA. We have to use our Yiddish cup, but we have to be careful how we use it, and never to create a Chilul Hashem. Once Yaakov was given the bracha of Yisrael, he had all the power of all the avot and imahot. To use another movie reference, I am all the Sith, I am all the Jedi. If you didn't see the last Star Wars movie, that's the reference. But Yaakov, or Yisrael at this point, was all the Jedi. He had the Yud of Yitzchak and Yaakov. He had the Sin of Sarah. He had the Resh of Rivka and Rachel. And he had the Aleph of Avraham and the Lamed of Leah. Together it is all Yisrael. Yud, Yaakov Yitzchak, Sin Sarah, Resh Rivka Rachel, Aleph Avraham, Lamed Leah. And thus became Israel, the man, the people, and the land in this week's Parsha. Rabbosai, Shabbos hi makar habracha. Don't roll on Shabbos. Shabbos, besides being the source of all our blessing, it is the source of our redemption from all evil. We only remain part of Yisrael. Ein Yisrael negalen ela b'schot HaShabbos. So this Shabbos, especially when we learn about the origins of Israel, let's spend an extra minute, an extra Dvar Torah, an extra Zmira, an extra second with our family, Kiddush, Challah, Chulent, fish. Enjoy the Shabbos. L'kras Shabbos, l'chu v'nelcha, kihi makar habracha. Join us back here next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. Thank you for joining us. I know this was a long one, but there were some important things to go over. Everybody have a great weekend and a Shabbat Shalom from Israel.